The sound of her own breathing was the first sign that something was wrong. In the dusty rehearsal room, lit only by a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, Clara could hear the quickening of her pulse in her ears, the inhalation, the soft hiss of her breath. It was the only sound in the cavernous space, or so she thought. She stared into the antique mirror propped against the far wall, its ornate gold leafing dulled with age and neglect. Her own face stared back at her, pale and drawn in the dim light, her eyes wide with a dawning terror. She had been practicing here for hours, running through the steps of an upcoming performance, but now the music was long forgotten. All that remained was a growing, cold dread. She had been aware of the mirror's presence all along, its chipped surface a familiar backdrop to her practice sessions. But now it seemed to mock her, whispering unheard words to the darkness behind it. Its shards reflected not just her image, but something else, something sinister and unknown. A chill ran down her spine, prickling her skin. The room was still, yet she felt a sudden drop in temperature. Goosebumps rose on her arms, and the fine layer of dust coating everything in the room swirled into the air, catching the faint light. Motes danced before her eyes, and then it began. Almost imperceptibly at first, her reflection twitched, a muscle in her jaw flickered, then another. The movement was subtle, like a tremor on the edge of her vision. And for a moment, Clara wasn't sure if what she was seeing was real or a trick of the flickering light. But then the head turned. It was ever so slight, almost imperceptible to anyone but Clara, who stood transfixed, her blood turning to ice in her veins. The movement was unnatural, too fluid and too fast to be her own hand. She watched, frozen with fear, as the face in the mirror slowly turned to her, revealing a grotesque parody of her own features. Her own face twisted into a semblance of a smile, stretching unnaturally wide. Then a pair of eyes, bottomless pits of inky black, stared out from the mirror. They were not her own eyes, but something alien, something predatory and cold. Clara gasped, stumbling backward, her foot catching on the frayed edge of the worn carpet. The ballerina in the mirror mimicked her movement, falling to her knees with an exaggerated flourish. But when Clara looked back up, the smile had vanished, replaced by a sneering snarl. Its lips curled upward, baring teeth that were too sharp, too long, stained crimson at the tips as if dipped in blood. Panic constricted her throat, making it hard to breathe. She scrambled back, knocking over a nearby chair. The sound echoed in the vast emptiness of the studio, seeming deafening in the oppressive silence. She glanced back at the mirror, expecting to see the grotesque figure rise. But it was gone. Only her own terrified reflection stared back. Had she imagined it? Was exhaustion playing tricks on her mind? But then the voice whispered, slithering from behind the glass like a serpent. "Don't look away," it hissed, the words slithering through the cracks in the mirror. "Don't turn away." Its tone was a raspy growl, a chilling parody of her own voice. Fear, cold and paralyzing, gripped her. She wanted to scream, to run, but her body seemed locked, held captive by an unseen force. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Her throat was dry, constricted by a terror that threatened to consume her. The voice continued, growing louder, echoing in the vast emptiness of the room as if mocking her paralysis. "You can't escape me," it hissed, each word a nail hammered into the coffin of her sanity, as she struggled to free herself from the invisible bonds that held her. The dust in the room began to swirl again, forming a vortex around the mirror. It was as if the very essence of the room was reacting to the horror unfolding within its walls. Then it emerged from the swirling dust, taking shape before Clara's horrified eyes. The creature in the mirror solidified, becoming more than just a twisted reflection. Stepping out of the glass, it moved with an unnerving fluidity, its form shifting and shimmering like a mirage. It was her reflection, yet not her reflection. Its skin was stretched taut over its bones, its limbs impossibly long and thin. The fingers were gnarled and tipped with claws that glistened under the dim light. Its eyes, bottomless pits of darkness, stared straight ahead, devoid of any life or warmth. It advanced toward her, moving with a disturbing grace, its footsteps silent on the wooden floor. With each step it took, the air grew colder, as if the very temperature of the room was dropping. The creature glided closer, and Clara could feel the oppressive weight of its gaze boring into her, stripping away her defenses, her last vestiges of hope. She stumbled back, her gaze locked onto the creature. Her mind screamed at her to run, to hide, but her body remained rooted to the spot. Fear had turned her to stone, her eyes wide with terror. She could feel the creature's presence looming over her, its breath a cold whisper on her neck. Yet she couldn't see its face, couldn't make out any features through the gloom. All she could sense was its malevolent intent, the sheer force of its will pressing down on her, stealing her breath. Then it leaned in close, its voice a sibilant hiss in her ear. "I am you," it whispered, and in that moment Clara understood. This was her deepest fear made manifest, her own self-doubt and insecurities given form. It was her own darkness rising to consume her, to drag her into the abyss of its own making. She wanted to scream, to fight, but she was trapped in a prison of her own fear. The creature's grip tightened, its icy fingers digging into her flesh. It was like being touched by a corpse, cold and lifeless, and with each passing moment, she felt herself slipping away, her consciousness ebbing like the tide, leaving her stranded on the shores of madness. Its touch was a branding iron, searing her soul. She thrashed wildly, trying to break free from its grasp, but its hold on her was relentless. Then it spoke again, its voice a triumphant cackle echoing in the vast emptiness of the room. "We are one," it hissed, and with those words the creature's form began to merge with hers. She could feel its essence seeping into her veins, its darkness mingling with her own, threatening to extinguish the last flickering flame of her humanity. Her vision blurred, the edges of her sight fading into darkness as the creature's touch enveloped her, consuming her whole. The line between self and other, between sanity and madness, dissolved. And as the creature's laughter echoed around her, she knew there would be no escape, no rescue. She was trapped in a nightmare from which there was no awakening. Her screams died in her throat, muffled by the creature's encroaching darkness. And as its form completely enveloped hers, she felt herself vanish, becoming one with the monster, lost in the abyss of its own making.